12th chapter, Bhakti Yoga. Arjuna Uvacha Evam Satatayuktaye Bhaktasvam Pariyupasate Te Chapyaksharam Avyaktam Tesham Ke Yoga Vittamaha. Arjuna is asking, Evam Satatayuktaye. Always be engaged. Devotees are always engaged in serving Krishna. Pariyupasate. Properly worshipping you. Ye Chapyaksharam Avyaktam. So one is who is always worshipping you. One, you are beyond the senses. You are unmanifested. So those who are properly worshipping you, they are more perfect. Or those who are worshipping the impersonal Brahman. To be considered as any of both are right. Both, one is worshipping the Lord's Vigraha. Lord and his Vigraha are non-different. They're engaging the senses in the worship. One is we cannot even understand with our material senses the form of Lord. That is why it's unmanifest for the senses. Because it's Adokshaja. In Vedas, both have been spoken. He has a beautiful akar. He doesn't have akar also. He doesn't have material akar. His nirakar. He doesn't have a material form. So how to perceive the spiritual form with our material eyes? So the yogis, they just meditate on that impersonal. How are you going to meditate on something which is impersonal? That is a question now. You can meditate on something which has form. How can you meditate on the formless? So even to worship an impersonal form, how to worship that? That is very difficult. In the upcoming verses, Krishna is going to speak. That is why it is very easy for the devotees to meditate on the form of Lord. Because Krishna's form and Krishna are non-different. Krishna's Vigraha and Krishna himself are non-different. Tumhara pratima nahi, sakshat Brajendrandan. So here the question is aroused because Krishna showed the impersonal form. That is a Virata form. It is actually an imaginary form. At the same time, it is an impersonal form. How are you going to serve? When you say impersonal, that means how are you going to serve Lord? 1,000 mouths, 1,000 hands, thousands and thousands, not just thousands and thousands. How are you going to serve? And if Jai Shri, the subject is going to be more clear now. Whether Lord is accepting the personal services or Lord is very happy with those who are thinking that he is impersonal. Okay. Deep.
Hare Krishna. Dvadashodhyayah Arjuna Uvacha Evam Satatayuktaye Bhaktastvam Paryupasate Ye Chapyaksharam Avyaktam Tesham Ke Yoga Vittamaha. Translation. Arjuna inquired, which are considered to be more perfect, those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested puppet. Krishna has now explained about the personal, the impersonal, and the universal, and has described all kinds of devotees and yogis. Generally, the transcendentalist can be divided into two classes. One is the impersonalist and the other is the personalist. The personalist devotee engages himself with all energy in the service of the Supreme Lord. The impersonalist also engages himself not directly in the service of Krishna, but in the meditation of the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested. We find in the chapter that of the different process of realization of the absolute truth. Bhakti Yoga, devotional service is the highest. If one at all desires to have the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then he must take the devotional service. Those who worship the Supreme Lord directly by devotional service are called personalists. Those who engage themselves in meditation on the impersonal Brahman are called impersonalists. Arjuna is here questioning which position is better. There are different ways of realize the absolute truth, but Krishna indicates in the chapter Bhakti Yoga or devotional service to him is the highest of all. It is the most direct and it is earliest mean for association with the Godhead. In the second chapter, the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord explained that a living
Your voice is not heard. Able to hear her.
phone iron actually. Those who worship the Supreme Lord directly, the devotional service is called personalist. Those who engage themselves in meditation on the impersonal Brahman are called impersonals. Arjuna is here questioning which position is better. There are different ways to realize the absolute truth, but Krishna indicates in this chapter Bhakti Yoga or devotional service to him is the highest of all. It is the most direct and it is earliest means for the association with the Godhead. In the second chapter Brahma of Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord explained that a living entity is not the material body, he is the spiritual spark. And the absolute truth is the spiritual whole. In the seventh chapter, he spoke of the living entity as a being part of the part and perfect of the supreme whole, and recommended that he transfer his attention fully to the whole. Then again in the eighth chapter, it was said that anyone who thinks of Krishna at the time of quitting his body is at once transferred to the spiritual sky, to the abode of Krishna. And at the end of the sixth chapter, the Lord clearly said that all of yogis, one who always think of Krishna within himself is considered the most perfect. So in practically every chapter, the conclusion has been that one should be attached to the personal form of Krishna, for that it's the highest spiritual realization. Nevertheless, there are those who are not attached to the personal form of Krishna. They are so firmly detached that even in the preparation of commentaries of Bhagavad Gita, they want to distract other people from Krishna and transfer all devotion to the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. They prefer to meditate on the impersonal form of the absolute truth, which is beyond the reach of the sense and is not manifest. And so, actually, there are two classes of transcendentalists. Now, Arjuna is trying to settle down the question of the which process is easier and which of the classes is most perfect. In other words, he is clarifying his own position because he is attached to the personal form of Krishna. He is not attached to the impersonal Brahman. He wants to know whether his position is secure, the personal manifestation either in this material world or in the spiritual world of the Supreme Lord is a problem for meditation. Actually, one cannot perfectly conceive the impersonal features of the absolute truth. Therefore, Arjuna wants to say, what is the use of such a waste of time? Arjuna experienced in the 11th chapter that to be attached to the personal form of Krishna is the best because he could thus understand all the other forms at the same time, and there was no disturbance to the love of Krishna. This important question asked Krishna by Arjuna will clarify the distinction between the impersonal and personal conception of the absolute truth. Hare Krishna.
Let us see what Krishna replies. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Veshamano Yema Nityayukta Upasate Shraddaya Parayopeta Steve Yukta Tamamataha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Veshamano Yema Nityayukta Upasate Shraddaya Parayopeta Steve Yukta Tamamataha. So what is my mata? Tamaha mataha, my yukta tamamataha. So what is my, what I consider the best? Krishna says, let us see. Maya Veshya Manha Yomam. Whoever speaks the mind in me, Nitya Yuktaha Pasate. He is always serving me. How? With faith. Parayaha upapetaha. He has all the transcendental faith in me. And in this way, he is the best. Krishna says, among the two, who is the best? One whose mind is always fixed in me and who worships me with great devotion, with great faith, who engages his senses in serving me. So here, in me means what? Into a person. You cannot serve impersonal. You cannot serve air, something which you cannot see. The air is the subtlest, but then even in the subtlest also, the subtlest of the subtlest is Krishna. So that is what is given. Krishna clearly says, according to me, one whose mind is fixed in me, serves me with great faith, engages his senses in me, I consider him to be the best. Saura Prabhu read. Saura Prabhu, hope you have heard all the classes before.
Last one's Mataji is pending.
Here, because I have changed the time, I'm not going to mark you absent because I know because you are in the office. So if it is my side, a change of time, even though you're not present also, I'll be considering you as present. Because
I'll listen to all the classes that I missed. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
you could hear the YouTube. But this time, 8 to 9 is the scheduled time. Because my next week also 2 problems are there. I have to go and okay, anyhow. Read.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Veshamano Me Ma Ye Mam Nityayukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Te Me Yukta Tamamataha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect. In answer to Arjuna's question, Krishna clearly says that he who concentrates upon his personal form and who worships him with faith and devotion is to be considered most perfect in yoga. For one in such Krishna consciousness, there are no material activities because everything is done for Krishna. A pure devotee is constantly engaged. Sometimes he chants, sometimes he hears or reads books about Krishna, or sometimes he cooks prasadam or goes to the marketplace to purchase something for Krishna, or sometimes he washes the temple or the dishes. Whatever he does not let a single moment pass without devoting his activities to Krishna. Such action is in full samadhi.
Ekvaksharamanirdesham avyaktam pariyupasate sarvatragamacintyam cha uttastamachalam dhruvam sanniyamyendriyagramam sarvatra samabuddhayaha te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhutahite rataha. Etvaksharamanirdesyam aksharam. Aksharam means which is beyond the senses. Etvaksharamanirdesyam, anirdesyam, indefinite. Avyaktam, unmanifested. Paryupasate, completely engaged in worshipping. Sarvatragama, all pervading. Achintyam, inconceivable. Cha, also. Uttastham, unchanging. Achalam, immovable. Dhruvam, fixed. Sanniyam, controlling. Indriyagramam, all the senses. Sarvatra, everywhere. Samabuddhayaha, equally disposed. They prapnuvanti, achieve. Mam, me, eva, certainly. Sarvabhuta hite ratah, for the welfare of all beings. Ratah. No, but those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses, equally disposed to everyone, such person engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me. So they are not directly worshipping me, but they are controlling the senses. They do all the welfare activities. Like they are seeing everything as part of Lord, you can say. They do all the welfare activities. They're equally disposed to everyone. Sarvam Kalitam Brahman. Everything is that Brahman. So at least he's not cruel. At least he's not cruel. So Lord says he's a Jnani. And for a Jnani to come, Bahunam Janmanam Jnanvan Prapadati Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samatma Sudurlabha. In that verse, we spoke about Vasudeva. Vasati iti sarvatra Vasudeva. Sarvam iti vasati Vasudeva. This category is this. Vishuddha Sattvam Vasudeva Shabditam. That is Lord. Personal form. Impersonal form of Lord is Brahman. Impersonal form of Lord is Paramatma. So, for him, Brahman and Paramatma reach is there. Reach means he understands up to that level. So, for a Jnani, for a yogi, to come to the level of bhakta, it takes thousands and thousands of lifetimes. At least he has started controlling his senses and doing welfare activities for all. Like Paramatma sabke hriday mein baithe. He has seen. Can he see? No. But he talks. At least he knows the truth. The Lord is there in everyone's heart. Bhagwan to sab jagah hai. No problem. So this talk is wrong? No. It is right. भगवान तो सब जगह है. यहाँ भी है, वहां भी है, सब जगह है. मंदिर ही क्यों जाना है? भगवान तो सब जगह है. अरे कुत्ते को खाना खिलाओ. Talk like this. So they are thinking of the welfare of everyone, not a problem. Krishna says, do. But answer to that Krishna is given there. Bahunam Janmanaman. To understand Krishna is a person, he takes personal services, he eats. It is not that I do something. Krishna makes me do everything. We are the instruments of God, we are servants of God, can be understood only when we serve him with that understanding that Krishna is a person. As much he is a person, I am also a person. As much as I am a person, he is a person, and we have personal relationship. To feed Krishna directly is a bhagya. But Brahman aspect, Paramatma aspect, many have. Yogis have, Jnanis have, and they do welfare activities for everyone. They cannot see somebody suffering. They give water, they give food, they do a lot of welfare activities. So sometimes they compare also what these devotees are doing. They are not doing much. How much we are doing the same. Devotee style of working is different. Devotees will give Krishna Prasadam. Devotees don't have compassion on a wrong platform. Simple. They know to what extent we have to help. Showing compassion on a wrong platform is wrong. So that is most important. Showing platform and a right platform. Compassion on right platform. Give Krishna consciousness, Krishna Prasadam to everyone. वो अकेला बैठा है, जाके दिखता हूँ, थोड़ा बैठता हूँ उसके साथ. That is wrong platform. No one is alone. Lord is there in everyone's heart. So we have to just chant the holy name. Give holy name to everyone. That's more important. Helping the blind. No problem. Help. But give Krishna consciousness. Just by giving some food, taking the blind person to a picnic is not going to give real happiness. That fear which is inbuilt, that cannot be removed by you taking anywhere. That will be for some momentary flickering happiness. Real sukha is chanting the holy name. So the devotees, they have the real key for the success. The success in crossing this birth and this cycle. Okay? Pushpa, read.
ये त्वा अक्षरम् अनिर्देश्यम् अव्यक्तं पर्युपासते सर्वत्र गम् अचिन्त्यं च कुटस्थम् अचलं ध्रुवम् सन्नियम्येन्द्रियग्रामम् सर्वत्र समबुद्धय ते प्राप्नुवन्ति माम् एव सर्वभूतहिते रतः. But those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me. Those who do not directly worship the Supreme Godhead Krishna, but who attempt to achieve the same goal by an indirect process, also ultimately achieve the same goal, Sri Krishna. After many births, the man of wisdom seeks refuge in me, knowing that Vasudeva is all. When a person comes to full knowledge after many births, he surrenders unto Lord Krishna. If one approaches the Godhead by the method mentioned in this verse, he has to control the senses, render service to everyone, and engage in the welfare of all beings. It is inferred that one has to approach Lord Krishna, otherwise, there is no perfect realization. Often, there is much penance involved before one fully surrenders unto him. In order to perceive the super soul within the individual soul, one has to cease the sensual activities of seeing, hearing, tasting, working, etc. Then one comes to understand that the Supreme Soul is present everywhere. Realizing this, one envies no living entity. He sees no difference between man and animal because he sees soul only, not the outer covering. But for the common man, this method of impersonal realization is very difficult. Hare Krishna.
क्लेशोऽधिकतरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्तासक्तचेतसाम् अव्यक्ता हि गतिर्दुःखम् देहवद्भिरवाप्यते. It is very difficult, Krishna says. Kleshodikatarastesham. Adhikaha. Klesha. It's very troublesome. Out of both, this is very troublesome. To worship that unmanifested avyaktaha, asaktaha, asaktaha, chetasam. If the mind is attached to that unmanifested, avyaktaha, unmanifested, impersonal form of Lord, then Krishna says, it is only going to give dukkha. It is going to be very troublesome. Deha vadbir avapyate. To make progress in that discipline is very difficult for those who are embodied. So we have a body, we have a form. Naturally, we will worship whom? Or we can meditate on the form. To meditate on the formless or trying to search Lord everywhere is very difficult. How are we going to search Lord everywhere after rejecting that Lord has a form? Yes, he is impersonal, but he is impersonal in respect to he doesn't have a material form like us, but he has a spiritual form and we have to accept that. Though with these eyes we cannot see, but with these eyes we can serve the deities. And Lord is even beyond the deities also. It's not that Lord is just restricted to the deities. Lord is beyond the deities. Lord is present everywhere. Lord is present in your and my heart. That is why Lord is beyond the deities. It is not just Lord is in the deities only. He is beyond everything. That is why Kanishtadhikari, they only think Lord is in the deities. Lord is only in the deities and in the temple. They cannot go beyond. Lord has three aspects: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Then Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samatma Sudurlabha. That Mahatma is very Durlabha. Like Prabhupada did not have a temple to preach. He went and stayed in such a place where there is no temple. But he could preach. Why? Sometimes we think only we can do devotion if temple is there. Because we don't know beyond that. But a pure devotee can see Lord everywhere. He is in the Golok Dham only. For him, Lord is not lost even for a moment. Why? Because his mind is fixed on the personal form of Lord. For him, the Lord is never lost. He doesn't have to search Lord. Lord is never lost. He knows the personal aspect of Lord. Okay. You read. Goloka, you read. It's a big purport. So two purport you read, two paragraph. Anuj, you read.
Okay, Ma'am.
Read.
क्लेशोऽधिकतरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्तासक्तचेतसाम् अव्यक्ता हि गतिर्दुःखं देहवद्भिरवाप्यते. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. Purport. The group of transcendentalists who follow the path of the inconceivable, unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord are called Jnana Yogis, and persons who are in full Krishna consciousness, engaged in devotional service to the Lord, are called Bhakti Yogis. Now, here the difference between Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga is definitely expressed. The process of Jnana Yoga, although ultimately bringing one to the same goal, is very troublesome. Whereas the path of Bhakti Yoga, the process of being in direct service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is easier and is natural for the embodied soul. The individual soul is embodied since time immemorial. It is very difficult for him to simply theoretically understand that he is not the body. Therefore, the Bhakti Yogi accepts the deity of Krishna as worshipable because there is some bodily conception fixed in the mind which can thus be applied. Of course, worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His form within the temple is not ideal worship. There is evidence in the Vedic literature that worship may be saguna or nirguna, of the Supreme possessing or not possessing attributes. Worship of the deity in the temple is saguna worship, for the Lord is represented by material qualities, but the form of the Lord, though represented by material qualities such as stone, wood, or oil paint, is not actually material. That is the absolute nature of the Supreme Lord. A crude example may be given here. We may find some mailboxes on the street, and if we post our letters in those boxes, they will naturally go to their destination without difficulty. But any old box or an imitation which we may find somewhere but which is not authorized by the post office will not do the work. Similarly, God has an authorized representation in the deity form, which is called Archa Vigraha. The Archa Vigraha is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. God only will accept service through that form. The Lord is omnipotent, all powerful, therefore, by his incarnation as Archa Vigraha, he can accept the services of the devotee just to make it convenient for the man in conditioned life.
Hare Krishna. So for a devotee, there is no difficulty in approaching the Supreme immediately and directly. But for those who are following the impersonal way to spiritual realization, the path is difficult. They have to understand the manifested representation of the Supreme through such a Vedic literatures as the Upanishads, and they have to learn the language, understand the non-perceptual feelings, and realize all the processes. This is not very easy for a common man. A person in Krishna consciousness engage in a devotional service simply by the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, simply by offering regulative obeisances unto the deity, simply by hearing the glories of the Lord, and simply by eating the remnants of the foodstuff offered to the Lord, realizes the supreme personality of Godhead very easily. There is no doubt that the impersonalists are unnecessarily taking the troublesome path with the risk of the not realizing the absolute truth at the ultimate end. But the personalists without any risk, trouble or difficulty approaches the supreme personality directly. A similar passage appears in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is stated there that if one ultimately has surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this surrendering process is called Bhakti. But instead takes the trouble to understand what is Brahman and what is not Brahman and spend his whole
Brahman,
life.
Brahman, not Brahman. Brahman
Brahman.
is four varnas. Brahman.
Brahman. Okay. Okay.
There's difference or not? Brahman and Brahman. Brahman
Yes.
is the excellence. Brahman is the varna.
Brahman. Yes, yes. The result is simply troublesome. There is it is advice here that one should not take up his troublesome path of self-realization because there is uncertainty in that ultimate result. Living entity is eternally an individual soul, and if he wants to merge into the spiritual whole, he may accomplish the realization of the eternal and knowledgeable aspect of his original nature. But the blissful portion is not realized by the grace of some devotee, such a uh, transcendentalist, highly learned in the process of Jnana Yoga may come to the point of bhakti yoga or devotional service. At that time, long practice in impersonalism also becomes a source of trouble because he cannot give up the idea. Therefore, an embodied soul is always in difficulty with unmanifest, both at the time of practice and at the time of realization. Every living soul is partially independent, and one should know for the certain that his unmanifested realization is against the nature of of his spiritual and blissful self. One should not take up this process. For every individual living entity, the process of Krishna consciousness, which entails the full engagement in devotional service, is the best way. If one wants to ignore this devotional service, there is a danger of turning to atheism. Thus, the process of centering attention on the unmanifested and the inconceivable, which is beyond the approach of the senses, as already expressed in this verse, should never be encouraged at any time, especially in this age. It is not advised by the Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna.
ये तु सर्वाणि कर्माणि मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्पराः अनन्येनैव योगेन मां ध्यायन्त उपासते तेषाम् अहं समुद्धर्ता मृत्युसंसारसागरात् भवामि न चिरात् पार्थ मय्यावेशितचेतसाम् ये तु सर्वाणि कर्माणि give all activities to me. First is worship me, giving up all their activities unto me. That means keep me in center. Sannyasya, giving up. Matpara, so attached to me. So what activities he is giving up? Materialistic activities. He is not interested in any materialistic activities. He is so attached to me. Ananyena, without any deviation, without division. Eva yogena. In this way, he is practicing bhakti yoga. Mam dhyayanta is completely meditating upon me. Upasate, worshipping me. Tesham aham samudharta. I deliver him. Because he has completely surrendered unto me. I deliver him from mrityu samsara, from the material existence of death, sagara, from the ocean of death. Bhavami, I become na chirat path. I become his deliverer. It is not going to take a long time, Krishna says. Mai aveshita chetasam. His mind is completely fixed upon me. That is why I take it as a personal responsibility to deliver him. Because he has given all his activities to me. He is not attached to any of the materialistic activities. You say, what about we going to office? If you consider that as material. If you consider that every activity of yours, you're doing it for Lord, how you're engaging all your samarthya in serving Krishna, and nothing is material. Maya is in our consciousness. If we consider something different from Krishna, it is Maya. If all the time we are absorbed in serving Krishna, it's not Maya. The lady goes inside the kitchen. If she does it for her own sake, her own desires, it is mine. If she does it for serving Krishna, it's not mine. It's all up to us. So it is why it said, Yetu Sarvani Karmani, give up material consciousness, spiritualize every activity of ours. Like sleeping is also an activity. You can also say sleeping is not an activity, it's also an activity. So the sleep is also for Krishna, so that we can wake up early and chant the holy name. Whole day, a person can easily serve Krishna if his mind is focused in Krishna. Then for him, going to office earning is also spiritual. Okay. Mayur Prabhudeep.
ये तु सर्वाणि कर्माणि मयि संन्यस्य मत्परः अनन्येनैव योगेन मां ध्यायन्त उपासते तेषामहं समुद्धर्ता मृत्युसंसारसागरात् भवामि न चिरात् पार्थ मय्यावेशितचेतसाम् meaning, but those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Partha, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Purport. It is explicitly stated here that the devotees are very fortunate to be delivered very soon from material existence by the Lord. In pure devotional service, one comes to the realization that God is great and that the individual soul is subordinate to Him. His duty is to render service to the Lord, and if he does not, then he will render service to Maya. As stated before, Supreme Lord can be appreciated only by devotional service. Therefore, one should be fully devoted. One should fix his mind fully on Krishna in order to achieve him. One should work only for Krishna. It does not matter in what kind of work one engages, but that work should be done only for Krishna. That is the standard of devotional service. The devotee does not desire any achievement other than pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His life's mission is to please Krishna, and he can sacrifice everything for Krishna's satisfaction, just as Arjuna did in the battle of Kurukshetra. The process is very simple. One can devote himself in his occupation and engage at the same time in chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Such transcendental chanting attracts the devotee to the personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord herein promises that without delay he will deliver a pure devotee thus engaged from the ocean of material existence. Those who are advanced in yoga practice can willfully transfer the soul to whatever planet they like by the yoga process, and others take the opportunity in various ways. But as far as the devotee is concerned, it is clearly stated here that the Lord Himself takes him. The devotee does not need to wait to become very experienced in order to transfer himself to the spiritual sky.
Okay,
In the Vara Purana,
one
this verse appears.
minute. The devotee does not need to wait to become very experienced in order to transfer himself to the spiritual sky. So you don't need so much of experience. You just have to surrender to Lord and follow the instructions what have been given by the spiritual master. Simple. Whatever is there in the Shastra, we have to follow. So from here, Aditya, read from here.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
In the Vara Puran, this verse appears, Nayami paramam sthanam archir adi gatim vina garuda skandam arupya yathichham anivaritaha. The purport of this verse is that a devotee does not need to practice Ashtanga Yoga in order to transfer his soul to the spiritual planets. The responsibility is taken by the Supreme Lord himself. He clearly states here that he himself becomes the deliverer. A child is completely cared for by his parents, and thus his position is secure. Similarly, a devotee does not need to endeavor to transfer himself by yoga practice to other planets. Rather, the Supreme Lord, by his great mercy, comes at once riding on his bird carrier Garuda and at once delivers the devotee from material existence. Although a man who has fallen in the ocean may struggle very hard and may be very expert in swimming, he cannot save himself. But if someone comes and picks him up from the water, then he is easily rescued. Similarly, the Lord picks up the devotee from this material existence. One simply has to practice the easy process of Krishna consciousness and fully engage himself in devotional service. Any intelligent man should always prefer the process of devotional service to all other paths. In the Narayaniya, this is confirmed as follows. Yavai sadhana sampatti purushartha chatushtaye taya vinatat apnoti naro narayanashrayah. The purport of this verse is that one should not engage in the different processes of fruitive activity or cultivate knowledge by the mental speculative process. One who is devoted to the Supreme Personality can attain all the benefits derived from other yogic processes, speculation, ritual, sacrifices, charities, etc. That is the specific benediction of devotional service. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, a devotee of the Lord can approach the supreme destination easily and happily, but this destination cannot be approached by any other process of religion. The conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is stated in the 18th chapter, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha ishyami ma suchaha. One should give up all other processes of self realization and simply execute devotional service in Krishna consciousness. That will enable one to reach the highest perfection of life. There is no need for one to consider the sinful action of his past life because the Supreme Lord fully takes charge of him. Therefore, one should not futilely trying to deliver himself in spiritual realization. Let everyone take shelter of the supreme omnipotent Godhead Krishna. That is the highest perfection of life. Hare Krishna.
Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Krishna says, Aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchaya. So Krishna says, do not fear. There is no need for one to consider the sinful actions of his past life because Krishna takes full charge of him. Because he has completely surrendered to Krishna. मय्येव मन आदत्स्व मयि बुद्धिं निवेशय निवसिष्यसि मय्येव अर्थ ऊर्ध्वं न संशयः. मय्येव मन आदत्स्व. Krishna says, keep your mind in me, fixed on me. Adatsva. Buddhim, keep your intelligence in me. Apply your intelligence in me. You will live in me. Krishna says. Atha urdhvam. Samshaya. Don't doubt. You will live in me if your mind and intelligence is fixed in me. Okay. That is how Ambarish Maharaj's verse, Savai Mana Krishna Padaram. Keep your mind in Krishna, intelligence is applied in Krishna, then you are with Krishna at every moment. Like you always think about your child, then you are actually living with your child. You think of a person, you are living with that person. So think of Krishna, then you are living with Krishna. Okay. We will read Hari Chaitanya Prabhu will read.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah.
Mayeva mana adhasva mayi buddhim niveshaya nivasishyasi mayeva ata urdhvam na sanshayah. Translation. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without a doubt. Purport. One who is engaged in Lord Krishna's devotional service lives in a direct relationship with the Supreme Lord. So there is no doubt that his position is transcendental from the very beginning. A devotee does not live on the material plane, he lives in Krishna. The holy name of the Lord and the Lord are non different. Therefore, when a devotee chants Hare Krishna, Krishna and his eternal potency are dancing on the tongue of the devotee. When he offers Krishna
Voice is not heard.
the devotee becomes Krishnaized by eating the remnants. One who does not engage in such service cannot understand how this is so. Although this is a process recommended in the Bhagavad Gita and in other Vedic literatures. Hare
How
Krishna.
Krishna is eating, how Krishna is giving us, very difficult to understand with our mundane intelligence, mundane senses. But yes, complete faith Krishna eats. And that is enough to make a person live with Krishna. Then that is enough for a person to be guided by Krishna. How Krishna guides, how Krishna walks with the devotee, that is a topic to be understood only with faith. With our intelligence, where logics end, bhakti begins. That is how Bhakti Vedanta. We cannot give logical reasons for everything. How Krishna accepts the offerings of the devotee, it's so difficult to understand with our mundane senses. If we try to apply logics, we cannot. We can see how Krishna guides the devotees very nicely. But then how are you going to prove that? To prove that to the whole world is very difficult. And you have to ask whether you have intelligence. And you say, yes, prove it. You cannot remove the intelligence and show. You cannot show your sentiments. It's a very difficult thing to be shown. So these are the most subtlest of the subtle. Bhakti is the subtlest of the subtle. Love, your love for the child. You cannot remove the love and show this is the love that I have. Maximum, nowadays only one heart is drawn. That too only for those lovers, the stupid lovers whose heart is broken. Mother cannot draw that heart. How much mother loves a child? In what way she is going to express that? So, devotion is the most difficult thing to be shown to others. That is why it is the most inner feeling of every devotee towards Krishna. It is not a show off. But there are people who do show off also. So bhakti is not show off. Bhakti is your love for Krishna, your concern for Krishna. Okay. So here we'll stop. And by yetu sarvani karmani. Not so difficult, not so easy to give up every activity. Not so easy to be disinterested in materialistic activity. Not so easy to be disinterested in the company of friends. Not so easy to be disinterested. Okay. Questions? No questions. Exalted devotees, huh?
Hare Krishna Mataji, one small question, Mataji. Krishna clearly mentions about doing devotion in the impersonal form is very troublesome. But having said by Krishna directly, why there are
Worship, not devotion, worship.
worship? So why there are impersonal is because in Bhagavad Gita he's clearly mentioning that.
Mentioned, but everybody is not following. No? Everybody is not reading also. No? How many Hindus are really reading Bhagavad Gita? So not that everybody has read. And even after reading also, there are no correct interpretations. That is why preaching activity is very important, where to make the people aware that you cannot worship on the impersonal. Only when we come in Krishna consciousness, Bhagavad Gita we open, isn't it? Before coming to Krishna consciousness, how many of us really studied Bhagavad Gita? At least I do not. I was thinking Bhagavad Gita is only the book of quote. Sach kahunga, sach ke siva kuch
Yeah.
nahi. Okay.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Patitanam pavani.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes. Why am
Mataji,
I up and down here? Okay.
Mataji, in verse number 3 and 4, the last paragraph, I want to understand the same, Mataji. Need some more understanding on it.
Jnanis and yogis cannot understand the form of Lord. Simple. It's the most impersonal form of Lord. At the same time, they're interested in doing welfare activity. There's so many people who are doing welfare activity. So many.
No, Mataji, verse number 3 and 4, in order to perceive the super soul, within the individual soul, one has to cease the sensual activities of seeing, hearing, tasting, and working, etc. Then one comes to understand that Supreme Soul is present everywhere. Realizing this, one envies no living entity. He sees no difference between the man and animal. Because he sees...
This for the impersonal.
Okay.
How then he sees, yes, slowly comes to an understanding. The Paramatma within the heart is making me do everything. It takes long time. It's not so easy to understand. It takes long time. Even to understand Krishna is a person also takes long time. Though we may be in the path of devotion, to even understand Krishna is a person, Krishna is taking care of all of us. To understand that also takes long time.
Okay. So those who have a dog at their place, so they'll get...
It doesn't matter. Let them have dog. If they're having dog, let them have. But that doesn't mean that he's a jnani.
Okay.
He can be a good devotee also, na?
Yes.
Before that, he has to keep the dog, what he can do, bichara. Before coming in Krishna consciousness. And it's not that just because he has come in Krishna consciousness, he has become a pure devotee. Even to become a pure devotee, it takes long time. Pure devotee means completely dependent on Krishna. It also takes long time. We are just sadhakas. At the level of sadhana, we are trying to do devotional service recommended by our spiritual master.
Okay, Mataji.
Slowly, at least one thing is good. We are trying to chant the holy name of Krishna. Struggling, chanting, sleeping, chanting. So many things happen when chanting. Thought processes, chanting.
Yes.
Everything is chanting. But at least we are chanting. We can say at least we are chanting. But immediately we cannot compare, oh, we are also alvars. Huh?
Okay, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Stop here. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Sindhubhyavacha, Paritanam Pavanebhyo,